Recently we've shown you the first piece of the Mercedes GLC facelift, and now there is the Mercedes GLC facelift as 63 AMG, so the top horsepower spec, or as the official name says, Mercedes-AMG GLC 63 S 4MATIC Plus. Whew. And we'll take a look at it on Autogefühl and also compare it to the GLC 63S as a Coupé. Which one is hotter as the top AMG spec? The GLC SUV or the GLC Coupé? Let's enjoy that together. Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go. With the GLC facelift, it now always gets LED from standard as a headlamps. I mean, for that price, that should be that way now. Optional, the multi-beam LED, also with better high beam function. Also, the daytime running light has been changed. Here now, the 63 and the 63S. The S model, a little bit more horsepower spec. Tell you soon more about that. So the 63 model that gets a different front grille. You see, this is a so-called Panamericana grille with a wider lower end and those vertical fins, pretty powerful, also with a stronger air intakes here in the lower end. And they are indeed air intakes. This is open area and an additional radiator. Very massive, mid-size SUV, but surely in that AMG spec already looks a little bit bigger. The length is at 4 meters 65, 15'3" or 183 inches, and a normal GLC you would get from 17 to 19 inch wheels, AMG then 19 or 20 inch, and now with the facelift, exclusively for the AMG models, 21 inch wheels. Those ones here, wow, really massive. Maybe even too massive, I don't know, but you always have to think about the bigger you go with the wheels, the more comfort you will lose. So I would rather tell you to go for 19 or 20 inch and not for the 21. Even if it looks good, you will lose comfort. V8 B-turbo sign right here, soon more to the engine details. This one here is the SUV shape. So we have that rather classic SUV shape right here. Still, it has the GLC, some Coupé style elements. And the design dropping line is here right below the door handles. That hasn't changed much. Some contrast here in the lower bumper right there. And of course, mainly to the wheels, the very aggressive look. And they also changed a little bit here of those fenders. I think the Sporty siding suits the GLC pretty much. The GLC facelift now changed the styling of the tail lamps right there. They are in this, two single design. The AMG version not only has the badges, but also those stronger beauty exhaust tips, but the outer ones, again, just beauty. The rear ones are on the very inside, and this diffuser also for the GLC 63. On the technology side, here the 63 and also 63S, they come with a rear differential lock. That is so standard for this one to get all the power on the ground, although it already comes with all-wheel drive. And suspension, a normal GLC would also already come either with an adaptive suspension or then with an air suspension. So it's still pretty rare in the mid-size or mid-size SUV segment. And then here the GLC 63 comes with the AMG version of the air suspension, adaptive air suspension. So yes, air suspension, but a little bit stiffer. However, as we've tested that one in the GLC 43 pre-facelift, we felt it's really stiff and you didn't really feel anymore that it's an air suspension. We will test that out with a facelifted 63 as soon as we can drive it. If you can still feel here that it's an air suspension, and if you can vary a little bit more between comfort and the sporty features. We'll keep you updated on that, I promise. So whereas the new facelifted 2-liter 4-cylinder petrol engines come now with a 48-volt board net and a mild hybrid system, this one here, the 4-liter bi-turbo V8, still no 48-volt support or MHEV or something. This one here also really handcrafted. This is a true AMG engine. Either with the 63 normal version, 476 horsepower, or here with the 63S, 510 horsepower, and the acceleration figures then to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour are either 4 seconds, or with this one here, even 3.8. And wow, that's blasting fast. And they even claim now they've just reset a new record lap on the Nürburgring Nordschleife racetrack with 7 minutes 49, making it the fastest SUV in this segment. Or they say even the fastest SUV overall. It really always depends on the definition, but that's really very, very fast for an SUV. So also driving dynamics-wise, we can expect a little bit more even than before here with the facelifted version. Now to the interior of the GLC, first of all. Nice door closing sound. Then the inside of the doors with article leatherette. Right here and there, soft touch, galvanized buttons at the window levers, and a brushed aluminum style, very clean and sporty. The optional Burmester sound system also gives you good sound, but is really coast intensive. Bigger bottles do fit here, and you open the trunk right there with a separate button, or also at the key, or then also with the button at the trunk. New steering wheel, updated, flat bottom. Distronic controls at the steering wheel, and you have those new button fields here where you control the suspension here. That will then be a small display right there, and on the other side for the driving modes. Seats will be standard. A sports seat with separated head restraint is a little bit thicker then, and also with microfiber dynamic on the inside, article leatherette on the outside. Those ones here are the optional AMG sports seats, integrated head restraint, slimmer, stiffer, a little bit more caged in. For the racetrack maybe better, and also with optional animal skin pack. I would not pick those because they reduce the comfort, and hardly anyone will use this on Nürburgring Nordschleife that Mercedes did for testing. So rather go for the base sports seat, save money and save comfort. I'm 1.86 m or 6'1". Regular Autogefühl subscribers will know it. And here with the panoramic roof inbuilt leaves me some headroom, but not too much. The predecessor, the GLK, before the GLC was around, was a little bit more rectangular build, a little bit more roomish, besides the trunk, which is longer than the GLC. Well, you feel somewhat caged in a little bit by this cockpit. It more feels like being in a C-Class, and of course they share a lot of parts. The steering wheel can be controlled electronically, so it's the left side right there, so it's a good and cozy function. This one here also features this microfiber grip at right and left side. That's pretty cool actually. I really like it. It gives you good grip in summer and winter time. And again, I have to say those optional sports seats are really not that comfortable. However, for adults, of course, you have way more than enough space in the front right there. You can also play with this turbine vents. They are not in the newest design, but already have the nice clicking sound. Seat control here at the inside of the doors. You can even put the lowest part here a little bit longer if you have longer legs. Well, in the reviews it's always a little bit weird, but when the door is closed, it's of course very easy to reach it. In the interior, much more has been happening. Because here, well, you start still with analog gauges on the left and the smaller screen on the right. And then optional, you get all digital gauges, 12.3 inch and 10.25 inch big screen. And both, if you go smaller or bigger screen on the right side, central infotainment screen, they all come now with the MBUX. And if you have here the 63, this is the setup you get, then you already get the optional setup as you see it right here now. And I think, well, if you spend so much money for a 63 or 63S, that's also an understandable decision. This one also features a new voice input. We've tested it a couple of times now, for example, for GPS or temperature input or so. But you can still change it here. And it's also a touch screen, so yeah, very well deserved for this car to get this new input. You can also change some information from while driving, when the engine is on. Phone connection, Bluetooth, Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, both is possible. And the navigation is actually quite nice to use. We're here in NYC. If you have a better web connection, then it works even a little bit faster. So this infotainment update is really, or was really necessary with the GLC, the one the customer actually profits most from. And also very nice that they have this middle console not only in the piano black lacquer, but also here in this carbon fiber style that makes it more premium. And one more close-up look on the digital instruments. You can also change the stuff then here when the car is fully powered with your left thumb, whereas the right area here for your right thumb then would be for the central infotainment screen. Again, for example, for browsing in the map or also for changing through the whole main menu. Other than that, here again the manual climate unit, easy to control while driving, and you still also have those hotkeys. I found them very useful, that you can always access the map, for example, and click on this Navigate button. Also here, this one opens for adaptive cup holders, USB-C device now, and inductive charging pad. And if you don't want to use a touchscreen right there, you can also use touchpad. Go back with those hotkeys. Then those driving modes, really important for the AMG model, because especially the air suspension will adapt it. And oh, wow, the exhaust button to give it even more tune with a special exhaust valve if you don't like your neighbors so much. Brom brom. And the middle armrest flips up like this, and now also with USB supplies right there. No problems to sit here with 4 tall adults in the GLC. Also headroom wise, no problem, even if you have the panoramic roof installed. It's also interesting to compare that with the GLC Coupé, because that one has the falling roofline. And you can see that those doors, they do not open that wide, especially in the rear. So if you think about a family trying to install child seats here, by the way, ISOFIX at the outside of the seats each, that is maybe then a little bit tricky. And also with the seat here, you have no control to adjust the angle or something, and you fall backwards a little bit. Maybe for a sleeping position, yeah, but then again for a normal comfortable drive in the rear. So I have had SUVs which were a little bit more comfortable or more adjustable in the rear here. Again, it's totally fine, but I've already seen better. The facelift did not change anything from that, by the way, but of course with every presentation we sum up the whole car again for you. If you ask yourself SUV or Coupé for the GLC, well, this is the reason to go for the GLC SUV, because it has the higher trunk right there. Sliding rail here. This is also cool because then it doesn't wobble around, so that's actually a good solution. Then, since you have the air suspension, you can even lower the car a little bit. It's not powered here at the moment, but then you could lower the car here. You can also flip those seats, and they flip directly. That's well done. And you see you have very good dimensions here. Take some measurements. In length to the normal seat would be about 90 centimeters. So you can compare it with equal sedan or something like that. So, and then here in length to the driver's seat, as I would be driving, is 1 meters 80. And I would guess we also have about a meter in width, if not a little bit more. Yes, even a little bit more than a meter in width. So you can very well use it. And here the minimum height right there, about 45 centimeters. And the upper part here is 75 centimeters. So I really like how usable this car still is. I mean, it's not too big, so very well usable still also as for the exterior dimensions. Some more space below that, or you can also optionally fit a replacement tire right here. The only thing here, well, those buttons on the upper part, they look quite dated now because they still originate from, I think, like 20 years ago or so when they had those first electric hatches child safety test. Very well done. Mercedes really knows how to master that one. So they always close totally properly, but you can be sure that no child head can be squished in there. So that's very well done as for this aspect too. The front of the GLC Coupé has been facelifted the same as for the SUV version. Headlamps start with LED now, standard, then optional the multi-beam LED, new signature, the special AMG grille. It looks really aggressive, and together with the bigger air intakes right there, also a contrasting lower bumper. And this grey magno color is always nice to have this matte paint. You can hear how I feel it. Interesting that it's really keeping clean also, so when you go to the car wash with such a vehicle, it's possible with this paint, no problem. And then it really, you know, just maybe a rain shower or something, it's really all clean all over the paint. And then you look at the wheels and say, oh, wait a minute, why are the wheels so dirty? So the wheels get dirty easier than the paint. It's the pure contrast when you have a white car, for example, then the paint gets dirty easy. So, yeah, I mean, we have to clean our cars regularly, but they still keep their beauty. With 4.72 m, 15'5" or 186 inches, the Coupé version of the GLC is indeed 3 inches longer than the SUV. Of course, the wheelbase is all the same. It's just the overhang that is a little bit different. And the AMG, the 63 model here, comes with some sporty accentuations. Here also with the package that you have the black frames around the windows, black mirror caps. You don't have to go for those wheels, but those ones are the optional, the new maximum 21 inch, so really massive. Also here on the Coupé, V8 bi-turbo, soon take a look under the hood. And then the special thing is, of course, that you have this falling roof line, this Coupé shape. Although I know that some people say there is no such thing other than a two-door Coupé. Well, when SUVs start to be Coupé, that's it. Here again with this very nice matte paint, which catches the light right there as soon as it faces upper part. And then new wheel arches right there with this additional small protector here, because the wheels are so large that the regulations-wise they need to add an additional small part here. Interesting, isn't it? And then this huge wing there. I have some mixed feelings about that. You know, when you have a Coupé shape, other than, you know, on the Estate or on the SUV or something, or a classic sedan, you have less downforce here with the Coupé, and so you actually need a wing. Maybe an adaptive one, maybe a fixed one, maybe a small lip, but this one here, a little bit too much, isn't it? What's your take on that? For all facelifted GLC models, the tail lamp design has changed, and here with the Coupé, it's also a little bit more horizontally drawn with this LED signature, and that I think is quite beautifully done here in the facelift. The 63 or in the 63S then features some sporty elements like this diffuser style and those AMG exhaust tips. The real exhaust is on the inside, and again you can see another perspective of this huge wing lip there. This rear perspective is so aggressive overall. It's really way more aggressive than the SUV shape, I think. Again, here the question again to you, is that too much, or would you think like, you know, that's somewhere I really want to go out with my friends tonight? It's always nice to look at the real AMG engine. 4-liter bi-turbo V8, 510, or, well, it depends on the market, sometimes 503 horsepower, depending on the spec for the S model, or then 476 horsepower for the non-S model, for the normal 63, and 4 or 3.8 seconds as an acceleration figure, 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. So that's the same SUV and Coupé, get the very same engine. And, you know, the driving performance also does not differ. So that's why they also applied this rear wing lip. that it also has some drag on the rear axle to get all the performance to the ground. The all-wheel drive here comes as standard, and since the C-Class or also GLC is a rear wheel driven platform, this one is always then rear plus front, so to say, so you always still have a rear wheel bias, especially with the AMG models. 1m86 or 6'1" also in this vehicle here, and leaves some headroom still, so in the front is no problem with the Coupé. It has just one roof here, one glass roof in the front with a shade you can close against hot sun and so on. Mercedes here has the most sensual design, also with those round vents and carbon fiber style here for the 63 model. Everything is wrapped tightly here also on the dashboard, soft touch here and also here. That's nicely done. The new BMW X3 does have some parts where the build quality is even better, because, you know, here at the dashboard, for example, this could be done a little bit better. But then again, as for those elements, and for example also the steering wheel, that is really excellent. 12 o'clock position here, the mark, I can see it right there. If it must be yellow stitches, well, you don't have to go for them. That's a matter of preference. But here the steering wheel all wrapped in microfiber. That's pretty cool. And the electric seat control here at the inside of the doors, also for the seat heating, that's easy to control. Well, you see, it is a very sporty cockpit. You feel somewhat caged in both SUV and in the Coupé. So to me, sometimes I wish I would have a little bit more room. Then again, if you want a very sporty interior, even in the base 63, that's what you get. Those ones are the optional sport seats with the integrated head restraints. You don't have to go for them. The base sport seats will also do just fine. Come standard with this model here with separated head restraint, give you a little bit more room to move around. Go for those if you drive this car every day. Microfiber on the inside, leatherette on the outside. That's a good choice, a standard choice. This is here the optional animal skin equipment, which costs extra money. Interior overview. Here you can adjust the steering wheel with the small column on the left side. Really nice, this visualization here in the digital instruments. When you go for the 63 version, you get this setup you see here from standard equipment. A base GLC would then start with smaller screens, but they always get the MBUX now. So you have the voice input, which works very well, and this touch screen, so it's a great infotainment update. You also have the possibility to change, you know, some brightness of the ambient light, for example, when it would be dark. Home screen always right there. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto available. You see the screen is pretty responsive. We're in New York, right there on the island. So pinch and zoom works well, but you can also do that, for example, with this lower touchpad. That works too. You can always use the back button. Still a classic climate unit here. I can also control this screen with the right thumb when the car would be properly powered, and also change the volume right there, whereas the left thumb then would control the digital instruments. You can see they disappear then when it saves power. Lower end also with some inductive charging pad, USB-C supply and adaptive cup holders. So it's somehow a mix between a classic and a modern infotainment unit. So some classic stuff here now with temperature vents, and lower end, which is, you know, really rather a little bit old school for Mercedes design, features from the C-Class, and then this new MBUX facelifted infotainment system. Now it's really great to have that one, especially when you just say, hey Mercedes, and then add some address to the GPS. That really makes your life easier than typing in everything individually. Well, then you can control also, for example, the damper rate in the lower end. That's also pretty important. You can also get some more of the exhaust, another volume jog here for the co-driver mainly. And then there's also the armrest where you have two more USB-C supplies. Mercedes is going all the way now with USB-C. The question with Coupés here in the rear is always, does it fit with the headroom in the rear compartment? And here it does fit for 4 tall adults, no problem. The thing is that with SUV coupés, they don't have to put the roof so low, and so you can also get some decent headroom. So yeah, it's a little bit less than in the GLC SUV version, but you can surely still live with that. You now also feature 2 USB-C charging ports right there. You can get a separate climate unit also for the rear seats, ISOFIX. Well, you lean a little bit backward here, but still it's quite, quite decent in the comfort. You have an armrest right here with cup holders and also some more room right there. So yeah, it's still a vehicle you can have easily as a primary vehicle and have some decent comfort on all of the 4 seats. And well, you don't have the rear panoramic roof as you would have in the SUV version, but you can still, leak a little bit through the front one. Well, here with the Coupé, you flip the logo to open the trunk, and then you have a loading sill that is different to the SUV, where you have no loading sill, so much space below that, so that's a little bit less practical, and of course you're more limited in height right there. So if you measure that very rear part, that's here just about 30 centimeters. Only here, then we get to about 50 centimeters. Yeah, but then in length, talked about it earlier, the car is a little bit longer, has a little bit longer overhang. So it's about a meter in length. That's about, like this longer than the SUV. So maybe that evens up the less practicability you have. But again, if you have higher things or maybe like a bicycle, this will hurt you then. But still, for such a sporty outlook, you still have an easy entry into the whole trunk area. And you can also easily flip the seats from here, right there, and then you're still quite flexible. As for the length overall, again, it's just the height limiting factor. That's about it. So, and this is almost 190 meters then to the co-driver seat. Since this one here also has the air suspension, you could also lower the trunk when the car is powered. Yeah, air suspension. This one here, it comes also standard for the GLC. If you pick that up, oh, it's going lower now, so it has some power. Interesting. That's Autogefühl live on camera. So again, normal GLC comes with an adaptive suspension or optional air suspension. The 63 models always come with air suspension standard, but then with the AMG tune to it, that it's a little bit stiffer. Again, we'll check out the driving review how that one plays out, both with the SUV and the Coupé right here. And they always say that they set the Coupé to a little sportier notch. We'll see about that. And now to our conclusion for today with the new Mercedes GLC 63 AMG. And yes, I'm still using the old AMG on Mercedes naming platform. I just think it's a little bit more logical and people also understand it better which version is actually meant at the moment. Well, the GLC itself is really a good mid-size SUV. Now with the facelift update, it's really more about the infotainment system, that you get a little bit more modern features right there. And I think that's also well done, that you can also use the latest infotainment there. Maybe not, in the very same way as the all-new models, but the closest they can get with facelifting a model. That's the main change. Yeah, and then, some cosmetics on the exterior. The GLC in the current generation surely remains one of the best mid-size SUVs out there. However, the competitors have really catched up. When you take a look, for example, at the all-new BMW X3, that is maybe even now better as for the interior quality. Just, to mention one thing about that. But here in the 63 spec, well, they claim they have the fastest SUV now, and well, you can also imagine that it was actually a good drive before. And we'll soon take a real test driving with this one here with the facelift Model 2. Interior also features some good materials if you like so they have plenty of choice there. That's where Mercedes is really strong at the moment. As for the animal and customer friendly materials, the space you have on the inside is actually also quite well done. So here with this car you can have a super powerful car, but still very versatile in everyday driving life, especially here as the SUV version. What do you think? And the conclusion, the GLC Coupé as a 63S. Well, especially as the AMG model, the GLC here looks even sportier. The general setup is already a little bit sportier than the SUV, of course visual-wise, and also a little bit as for the settings. But here when you look at it at the AMG version, somehow as a concept it now then makes more sense. You know what I mean? So as the sporty version, it really takes on that look of the Coupé shape. However, the SUV will always be the more practical one. if you take a look at the trunk. This one here, yeah, I mean, you're limited a little bit in the height right there. This is the base thing you have there. It still opens quite good as the wide hatch. You can load in things in and out quite easily. So there are not too many differences between the SUV and the Coupé. It's really more about what is your taste, what you like better just from the shape from the exterior, and you need that extra space. I would always go for the SUV because I would actually take, you know, a little bit more of height on the rear that I could maybe fit a bicycle in there or so. But if you really like a Coupé, but then think, oh, wait a minute, I like Coupés, but they're not that comfortable, I rather want an SUV, then this one here would be the mix or your choice you're seeking. So please tell me in the comments what you think here about the Coupé. Or if you take my side and join me with the SUV. Thank you so much for tuning in to Autogefühl, and please also join us for more cars.